Echoing runes. Okay, keep. Please don't counter my Prophetic Prism. More blue-black, wow. This is like the the fifth basic swamp matchup in 5 rounds. This league meta is pretty weird. So much different to the challenge meta. Like basic swamp is probably the worst basic in Pauper. Nah, maybe not. Island, mountain, plain. Yeah, it's probably the worst basic. And we played against 5 of them in 5 rounds. Island is the best, obviously. Though snow-covered island is the best. Came in like a wrecking ball, that's true. Definitely came in like a wrecking ball. Last opponent decided to never counter cantripping creatures. This opponent seems to even value the ones that are weaker, so pretty interesting how different people approach countering different things here. I think countering the creatures that draw cards is actually one of the ways that blue-black should approach the matchup, especially pre-board, though the flying creatures are a lot more scary than these inspectors. You just want to outclass Inspector with Augur of Bolas to either force me into bolting Augur of Bolas, which I don't want to do, or force this into not being a relevant card at all. So I think like Core Skyfisher and Glinthawk, as well as Palace Sentinels, of course, should be the priority counter targets. Well, now I'm no longer as scared of my Prophetic Prism getting countered. It would have actually been my preferred way for this turn to play out. Don't think these types of turns are always awkward because you don't want to run your Core Skyfisher into your opponent's counterspell, but you do want to stop them from casting Forbidden Alchemy if they have both Alchemy and a counter in their hand. But I think I'm still going to err on the side of not casting my Skyfisher into Open Soul Manipulation mana. And then if my opponent taps out for Muldrifter here, I get to punish them with Palace Sentinel's Galvanic Blast. Yeah, so they do get to Alchemy. If they don't have a counter with their Alchemy, it kind of works out the same. If they do have counter and Alchemy, you're putting them into a weird spot. And if they only have a counter, then it's very good for you to pass the turn and not run into it. Because then they kind of lose out on the mana efficiency. And you can keep this in hand for a potential 2-spell turn. Do I think Manipulation? In this matchup, I think it is, yeah. Because Muldrifter is a card you have most trouble beating. But yeah, you need to sequence your plays in a very specific way, and it is a lot less consistent, so it's very matchup reliant. Probably Exclude is like better on average, but in this matchup I'm much more scared of Soul Manipulation, so I'm like biased towards thinking it's better. They put Gurmag Angler and Soul Manipulation into the graveyard though, so that's pretty weird. Kind of surprising for that to be the 2 cards that they didn't want. So either they just took the second Soul Manipulation. If they had Recall, they would have likely already fired it off. I think I'm once again unwilling to put a creature onto the board. Just putting them to the test how patient they are in countering or not countering these artifacts. I think it's correct for them to not counter. But like I'm dancing around them, trying to make them finally counter something. And then I want my creatures to be combined in the same turn. Wait. Okay, interesting. They did have recall, but they decided to not fire it off. It's pretty annoying for me here. Well, not actually that bad. I mean, sure. I'll just get rid of the garrison and then naturally build up my mana again. Like, you always feel a lot worse about the recall than it actually is. Like, they're also spending a card on this. The matchup is low enough that both of you are going to be making their land drops again. Like, I'm not getting immediately punished for the fact that I'm behind on mana. I don't like seeing that though. Well, no, I guess I do like seeing that. Yeah, that's amazing for me. because they don't have a land drop left, right? I just get to Palisade them and then I'm pretty much winning. Yeah, this is not a good play by my opponent. They can't play land anymore, right? If they can play an untapped island, then everything's fine, but here it seems like they're just throwing the game away. Yeah, you don't want to be countering artifacts. I was just like, never mind. Oh yeah, they can angler follow up, of course. Well, then I think I still have to Palisade this and then hope that one of my creatures can jump block. But then it has a lot of risk attached to it. It still is the only play that my hand really offers me. But it's no longer as much of a blowout. I might still be losing here. Daze, yeah. Definitely want Daze in your, like, trying to flashback 7 mana cards deck. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that does not look like they're killing both of my creatures. If they do, I'm pretty much lost on the spot. If they don't, I'm pretty much winning on the spot. Because from then on I can stall with vials, I can do like jump block into Galvanic Blast, all that stuff that keeps the Monarch under control. I guess they can run out more creatures and that becomes a little bit annoying. Yeah, discarding Strands would have been amazing. But sure. Strands should still be reasonably useful here. Enlistment is also pretty decent. Though not yet, I think. Sure. So now I have to decide between using both of the wilds or only using one of them to stop both attacks or only one, because I open myself up pretty hard to disfigure if I only use one. I think I still have to with my current hand. Doomblade and Disfigure just destroys me. But it helps me catch up on the board potentially. No, I'm not underestimating anyone. I just almost lost to Everex. I'm over underestimating anyone for today. And like a dingo, thank you for your follow. Underestimating has been sufficiently exhausted for today. I'm giving full respect to each and every one of my league opponents. For all I know, they could run out Self-Assembler here and start crushing me as well. Speaking of crushing me, yeah, don't like my position here at all. They are still crushing me. Yeah, getting this Prismatic Strands into the graveyard somehow would have been very useful, but yeah, now Alchemist Vial the Angler. No, don't overpower me, stop! Opponent, please. Actually pretty far behind. Especially if they have the Dispel that they seem to be running nowadays. I have no idea why you would really want the Dispel, because it's not actually good in, well, in most of the matchups. I don't know. I mean, I can see it being good against like the Vines of the Westwood matchups. I guess against Tireless Tribe it's okay as well. Now I can discard the Strands. That's probably good. Then I can like Sense, Enlistment, Core Sky for sure, Flashback Strands. Fight for the board and buy myself some time where I'm not losing the Monarch. Yeah, these. Is it finally the moment where Zen's Investment gets to do anything, or am I getting Bujuka Bob next turn? Vote now in the chat. The entire league I've waited for this card to do more than 2 tokens and finally find the matchup where it has time to shine. And so far that has not been the case. No bog. Disfigure my Kithkin, okay. May. Okay, hopefully I finally get to cast a second copy. I guess I cast a second copy once. Turn to Island Sanctuary. In EDH? Wow. More than Rover Horrors. Well, I guess. I have cards to throw away. It's not that bad. Well, I guess if they counter my Prismatic Strands, it's a little... No, then I just attack back. Yeah, everything should still be fine. Because next turn I make more tokens. Yeah, they do still have a flashback card left. So a little bit of card advantage still lying around here. And my blocks are not that favorable against all these 4/4s and 5/5s. But still, seems doable to stabilize from here. I think I'll just run this out because it has good double blocks and then bounce the land and play Thraben Inspector. Assuming they don't soul manipulation me here. If they do, I'm getting wrecked by that as well. Well, no Bojuka book was the correct call. Still a lot more board present than I like my opponents to have. Recoil my soldier. Ah, damn, Modo doesn't let me discard it. Damn you, Modo. They're really aggressively making me discard a random card when I'm drawing 2 cards a turn and I have a bunch of useless cards in my hand that I'm not actually capable of casting. Okay, please with 1 time dealer. 3rd recoil? Are you serious? Well, there go my tokens. So I guess they get to be the Monarch now. But I can Lightning Bolt. I can just attack back and then Lightning Bolt, double block, attack back. Huh. Probably want to get rid of the Vial still, even though it does stop an attack. Maybe that's better. Double block. They deal 9 to me. I have 1, 2 creatures left. Block. Block. Yeah, I'll probably get rid of this Palace Sentinel still. Why you know bugged? Yeah, exactly. It's bugged so often. Why can't it be bugged when it's useful? No, I think I would be fine. He did it on the first bounce land. And on the first bounce land it was fine, but I could just discard the bounce land and then, like, if they target my token, I'm actually losing a card in hand, but yeah, doing it on the token was not particularly impactful, that's also true. No Disfigurino, please. I mean, okay, get to be the Monarch again. No counterspell, please. No. Yeah, just don't disrupt all of what I'm doing here. They should be out of bounds effects by now after 3 recalls and 2 Dinrover Horrors. And then I do have the board under control, at least for a turn, because I can stop the Dinrover Horror from attacking, and if they kill my Inspector so the Augur can get through, I just bolt it. Recall needs retrace, okay, that... You should have been in the Great Designer Search. I think they need people like you there, Flaming Cheetos. You know what's going on. In a worse spot, maybe. Not certain. Because that gives me like more fodder to discard. Also would have somehow enabled my Zen's Enlistment. Because then I can potentially keep the Bounce Land in hand and then discard it to make 2 tokens. Okay, this is the turn where I start feeling ahead. Their flashback card is now gone, so they no longer have as much card advantage looming. I guess I don't have an artifact to profitably bounce anymore after going through all of those. Wait. Maybe I should have not played that land. That was not smart. Because I want to keep retracing. Yeah, I missed. I should have kept the Windscarred Crack in hand, I think. I mean, I can still retrace here, but it was not that smart to throw one of my lands away. Keep this. Am I ever triple blocking? Probably not. Do I want to play around Echoing Decay? Probably alright. Recon needs Cypher. Well, all of you are great at designing fair and balanced and fun mechanics, but I can trump all of you. Recall needs Storm. There we go. That's how you make balanced cards. I held this back so that if they Echoing Decay my tokens, I can still trump block and keep the Monarch. Because that felt like the only thing my opponent can still do to get back into this. Wow. More Anglers. Sure. Well, now Echoing Decay is a problem. But I won't be running out of blockers anytime soon. Maybe I even want to run this out, even though it doesn't gain any value, because the blocks with it are also kind of reasonable. Clone Legion, wow. Yeah, I guess Glyn talking back my artifact land also gives me another thing to retrace. I can just keep it in hand for next turn, though I was considering building up to 2 retraces a turn, for which I need 8 mana, which would make me, like, force me to play out my land, but I guess that's too unrealistic. Wait, now I don't have Metacraft. Yeah, that was not smart. I should have maybe played this Ancient Den back onto the board so that I have Metacraft for this. Because this makes my situation a lot more sketchy. Well, I can still fight through their creatures pretty well now. And I think with Zen's Enlistment I shouldn't be dying to the decking war. Like I did the previous time, so unless my opponent comes up with a Bojuka Bog or something, I should be fine here. Okay, sure. Well, now I do get to Galvanic Blast it next turn with the Zen's Enlistment block. Start going aggressive, they're out of cards. I can jump block with the Kiskins and then go for damage on their face also. We'll see. Should be difficult for them to beat Zen's Enlistment. Yes. Okay, we turned the corner. That mid game was pretty scary when facing down Gurmag Angler, then Rovahara. I guess it's just free to do this so I don't die to like Moldrifter Chain and them having too much counterplay. Yeah, enlistment is gas in this matchup. I'm just not sure if losing out on flying in other matchups is worth it, but definitely whenever you get paired against blue-black, this is insanely good. Blue-black just isn't that much of a concern in the metagame, I think, but I guess blue-red is also like uprising. There's more blue-red flicker and stuff going on now after that has done well in the previous challenge, so I could see more people picking that up that are interested in control decks to begin with. Wow, Augur into Alchemy is a pretty great card advantage engine though, but I guess at this point there's not much my opponent can really draw. Basically they need a board wipe, Echoing Decay or Giving Crush Justice. Once again I can bounce my artifact land to make more Zen Enlistment tokens, so that's pretty great. Though I assume I'm not making more tokens this turn, because they already need a board wipe. So, Doomblade, sure. Yeah, let's just run out one more flyer, but not make any more tokens. Keep the land in hand for enlistment in the future. What is my worst matchup? I think Tron and Boggles are like among my worst matchups, but it kind of depends on what your sideboard looks like from week to week. Like you can hate out Boggles if you're prepared for it, but I like keeping my sideboard light on hate for it, so at the moment it's one of my worst matchups. And Tron can be your worst matchup if you're not prepared for it, but at the moment my sideboard is very hateful towards it. So right now Boggles feels worse than Tron, but it's kind of a result of my sideboarding. And if I had like 2 Patrician Scorn and fewer Pyroblast, for example, then Boggles would get a lot better and Tron would get a lot worse. But I think those two and then like very controlling blue-red decks can be scary, though I think you still come out, well, not ahead, but you're like 45-55, it's not even that awful. It just feels awful whenever you lose because they completely crush you, but those games are not that frequently how the matchup goes. Sometimes you crush them with a bunch of Pyroblasts as well. 4 Everex is definitely scary as well, that is one of my worst matchups. Well, okay, sure. They are fighting and fighting and fighting, trying to hold on to dear life. For dear life? I think it's for dear life, whatever. They're trying to hold on, keep themselves alive here. They're also pretty close to just decking themselves. 7 cards left in library. I think I'll once again choose to not do another enlistment. Okay, there we go. I was going to draw with my Prophetic Prism and my Monarch to find a burn spell to close this out. There we go. These are once again coming in. I've already explained this multiple times this league, as this is our 3rd time playing against blue-black. Wait, is it? No, we played against mono-black twice? I don't know. Like all black decks. At the very least our 2nd time playing against blue-black. And the Karkland Charm comes out. I think I wanted to keep one of them for Galvanic Blast, Skirmic Angler or something. At least I did against mono-black. And here I don't have any Core Sanctifier targets. But they're so heavy on the recalls, it's a little annoying. I could Standard Bearer to make the recalls a little bit worse against my bounce land, but it's still just a creature that dies to 1-for-1 removal without generating an advantage, which none of my other creatures really do. Also, it gets completely blanked by Augurs. Yeah, Affinity is just not that good. And it's also not that fun, in my opinion. I mean, fun is a very subjective thing, but it's not splashy. Like, it's the type of deck that, like, people who like winning play it when it's good enough to win, and people who like doing sweet things do sweet things elsewhere because it doesn't do anything particularly awesome. So like the people who like doing like splashy things, they play elves, for example, or I don't know, Tron, or yeah, you know. And like Affinity is just incredibly boring, but whenever it's good, it's really good. So then it gets played by the spiky part of the community. But at the moment, these people know that there's better things to be playing than Affinity, so there's like no target audience left for Affinity. Yeah, but like the deck is like a one-trick pony. Like Aatrox is the only card in the deck that is like really doing anything. The rest of it is just casting random 4/4s and hoping you get there. And that the rest of the deck is not particularly impressive and not particularly good. And you're very reliant on like Aatrox single-handedly carrying you. And also like Aatroxing people in the face is something you get tired of after some time, I think. Like everyone wants to try it out, but then you also end up in situations where you're like 2 damage short of killing them, and then your Aatrox is kind of bad. So pony, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, one-trick pony. Yes. Okay, hand looks reasonable. Need to watch out that I don't time out. The bronies are coming out in my chat. Yeah, Everix is a neutron in the meta, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously other ways that Affinity can win. I'm not saying it's like an awful deck, but it's like slightly worse than all the other top decks, in my opinion. And it's like too boring for the crowd that plays decks that are fun but not necessarily good. And it's too weak for the people who play decks that are good but not necessarily fun. So I think it's like in a bad spot in terms of popularity because it doesn't have a specific target audience. I almost lost. I lost a game to 4 Everexes. You should watch the VOD. I got crushed by Everex and Pouncing Kavu. If you don't know what a Pouncing Kavu is, I don't blame you. I didn't know it either before it happened to me. And then I had a horrible revelation of Pouncing Kavu was forced onto me, and it was not a pleasant experience. Okay, run this out because it doesn't die to Disfigure, and if they soul manipulation it, I get to get it out of their hand before it counters something with the creature in their graveyard. I'm still pretty comfortable tapping out here for another turn. I just want to avoid more drifters, which they're still a mana away from. And currently I don't have any recall targets worth recoiling. I mean, any of my lands and my creature are like reasonable. It's still a 1-for-1 trade, but nothing is really a blowout from my opponent. It's pretty annoying for me though that they countered my artifact. Usually this is a bad idea. I wouldn't recommend it. But here it's pretty annoying because my Glintox are stranded for a while. And also I really wanted my 5th land. That's the most annoying part of all of this. Because Palisand knows Pyroblast backup, GG, game ends. Thank you for playing, please come again. And here I'm just sitting around trying to bait counters out of their hand and putting a medium amount of pressure onto my opponent. And if they do nothing, I just keep these Pyroblasts open. But yeah, untapped 5th land would be a dream. Sure. I mean, not only can I not fight over it, but I would also not fight over it if this was a dispel or something. It's not really what the game is about. This is what the game is about. $420 Dragon, how do you beat Everex with this deck? You just cast 4 lightning bolts, or what is your plan? It's just unbeatable. You don't get it. Everex is the future. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna run out my second Glinthawk for no value when I can already spend some time on cracking my clue and so on. I think I want to do it main phase to find my land, though bounce land into their potential recoil is pretty awkward. Tapped land is pretty perfect. Got to use my land drop this turn. Next turn it's available to me to protect my Palace Sentinels. Once again, I don't care about your removal at all. Are you still trying to make familiars work? Diesel already arranging an intervention. 420 Dragon, we need to talk. It's time to let familiars go. No, he played Blue-Red Delver in the last challenge, so I think he knows. It feels very bad, man. I'm saying this with a very sad heart, but familiars is dead. Familiars is not a thing at the moment. Maybe if they ban Spellsters right, we can return to our familiar ways. Start Ghostly Flickering Mnemonic Wars again, but right now it's not a great time to be a familiar. I mean, it depends on your metagame. If people are trying to mono-black control you or something, then they can still never beat a Muldrifter. You can still destroy them with familiars. But if they're trying to spellstutter or sprite you, you're in a much worse position. You would want to not be familiar. Very much depends on what's going on around you. So for paper, maybe it's fine. Depends, yeah, it just depends on what people want to play. You do a great job in validating many matchups. I just feel like the online metagame at the moment is pretty hostile towards it. Like, I'm one of the biggest familiars fanboys there is, but I'm also a realist. And yeah, my results with it have not been spectacular. This might have been the turn to Palace Sentinels, but I didn't want to lose to Hydroblast or Dispel. And this gives me a way to turn my Glinthawk into a real threat, so I was willing to be a little bit patient. Yeah, Flaming Cheetos, exactly. I sell houses. Though the house market also is collapsing under all the land destruction. Like, it's been raining stone and wrecking balls and all that, and now I'm kind of out of work. So it's not a good time to be a realist at the moment. Not a good time. Yeah, I still don't really care about this, even though they might hit flashback spell that duress. Boo. Well, no, I would have preferred to have Pyroblasted it, but yeah, I can ignore the Augur on the board. It runs into Thraben Inspector. They have to disfigure something that I otherwise don't really care about. Duzel underscore has followed that. What? Duzel underscore has followed. There we go. No, I played, well, Frantic Search was banned long before Familiars became the best deck in the format. But yeah, I didn't play it at that time. I played it when Cloud of Fairies was around. Duress your hand, concede. At least my opponent knows what's up. They saw my hand and they're like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm not letting my opponent draw 20 cards while they have the Monarch. That was pretty nice. So, what did we learn? We learned, don't try to core sanctifiers your opponent's Nihil Spellbomb when it's their only artifact and you have artifact lands on your board. That's a big no-no. You will end up destroying your own land. The opponent missed that, but it could have come up. We learned Serrated Arrows in the main deck is pretty awful. At least we also learned people like their swamps a lot more in the League metagame than they do in the Challenge metagame. The Challenge metagame loves their basic mountains. The League metagame loves their basic swamps. We learned Everex is unbeatable. And we learned Zen's Enlistment is sweet against blue-black, but I'm not yet certain if it's better than Battle Screech in all the other matchups. It definitely hurts the blue-red Delver matchup. the Krark Clan Shaman was underwhelming, but all of the testing is like highly skewed by the fact that I faced a bunch of blue-black and mono-black decks. So I already knew that the changes I was making were going to be worse for the blue-black and blue mono-black matchups. Like, it was intended to target Tireless Tribe, the Mirror, and Blue-Red, which are the big 3 decks. But I guess if no one's in the leagues is playing the big 3 decks, then there's no point in testing it like this. I just need to find people who are willing to test specific matchups against me and just play like practice matches. I'll write Hello Tech or maybe even Darkest Mage to see if I can get like some tribe practice going. Yeah, I like the downside of this is that I don't have slots for 3 serrated arrows. I want 3 serrated arrows, but like this is 17 cards. I guess like this is a little bit overboard when I already have serrated arrows to hate on 1 toughness creatures. But let's say I cut down on these and say like serrated arrows take care of Delver, for example, which is a reasonable assumption. But then the downside is I'm less prepared for elves, I'm less prepared for boggles, so then I probably need to turn these into like partition scorns. Then suddenly I don't have as much artifact hate anymore. And then it like keeps spiraling out of control because I need to make space in my sideboard, and then I'm cutting cards for some matchups while trying to improve other matchups, and yeah, it like keeps cascading out of control, and I'm not certain how to make out of this space. Yeah, maybe 2 for sure, but they are pretty huge blowouts in the matchups where they're good. It is definitely an underrated card, and I would advise many decks to take this into consideration and play more of it, especially considering how much it destroys Blue-Red Delver and Tireless Tribe especially. Yeah. So yeah, this build still needs some work. The 21 lands felt alright again. We still flooded out quite a bit. I'm still interested in this Faithless looting idea because we have all these cards that we really like to be discarding. Especially the Prismatic Stance. It's like a huge tempo swing when you flash it back, but the front side of it can often be a tempo lost. Though in some matchups you need it to be Moment Peace, where you're casting the front side and the back side, especially the like Stompy, Boggles, Elves, those matchups. Not certain. I might be moving back to the Electric in the main deck, and then that makes some room in the sideboard. Could also be interested in the Reaping Graves in the main deck right now. Yeah, it's all not that easy to consolidate all these ideas. But yeah, Serrated Arrow is definitely a card that I'm keeping an eye on and that I want to be playing more of. Okay, I think that's it for today. And I'll upload all of this, the Vintage Challenge, the Red White Monarch League, to YouTube, I think, and then tomorrow I'll be back playing the Pauper Challenge.